Oh, everyone. I'm going to be having a little bit of a different conversation with you today. And I'm going to be honest, I'm feeling a little bit charged up about this, but I think it's something that's been brewing for me for a long time. And I really want to have a conversation with you today about coaching competencies and ethics and standards within the industry. To give you a little bit of context before I dive into this, the first training that I did was the RTT hypnotherapy training with Marissa Peer, and I am so immensely grateful that this was my first exposure to a formal training. I remember on one of the first days of this training, because it is a British institution, they talked about the different levels of kind of standards. I think it's for therapists and counselors in the UK, and how we were rated at a level 5, but the top level, like someone who, had kind of a PhD kind of thing, was a level 6, but that even though we were recognized as level 5, that we would take these level 6 standards. And so we learned all of the safeguarding training, all of the consent, all of the ethics that was taught in that program was of a very high standard, and was meant to be of the same rigor of this governing body in the UK. And at the time, I didn't fully understand how important this was, because I was so new to it. I got it. It was very serious. We were doing therapy. It was particularly with that, we were doing a lot of regressive hypnotherapy, with people with trauma. So it was very, 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 very important to understand how to deal with a variety of situations that would come up, and to just have a really high level of integrity in what we're doing. Since then, I have been in many different parts of what people would call the online coaching industry. I have experienced many different modalities, many different approaches. I've even experienced completely different, like polar opposite definitions of what coaching is. I've sat in the rooms where people talk about, people are very pro not having any training of being a coach, and just kind of, just deciding to set up your business one day and kind of using intuition and instinct, and and just kind of rolling with it. I've seen incredible coaches and leaders on both sides, those that are very formally trained and those that aren't. And I've also seen people that aren't so great that are on both sides. So I don't think that one is fundamentally like makes a certain kind of person than the other. But what I do want to say is that it is I what I feel is incredibly important for us to have more of a conversation about is the responsibility of the person in the coach role. And when I say coach, I mean healer, therapist, intuitive, whatever that is, because there is an immense amount of responsibility for the person that's in this role, for the person that's helping others. And what I also want to say is that I've learned this throughout my life in different crafts. In any craft, in order to break the rules well, any master in their field, whether it be in art, science, whatever, will break the rules, but they have a deep understanding of the rules that they're breaking. And this is something that I feel like is often missing in this industry, is the deep understanding of the fundamental rules that are being broken. So what I'll use the example of, like, with dance. We have to have a contemporary dancer that can make all of these weird lines and these weird shapes look good. There has to be this foundation understanding of ballet. They have to learn how to hold their shoulder girdle, how to hold their head, how to hold their arms, how to hold a structure before they can hold a structure that's no structure, that's messy. You can't just take um someone off the street and try to get them to do like human, like broken contemporary, because they can't do it. They don't have the underlying fundamental structure. And so even though you're breaking all the rules of dance in this style of dance, you can't actually do it unless you know all the rules of dance that you're breaking. The same thing in photography. A lot of the best break rules of photography, rule of thirds, different compositional, different exposure rules. I do this all the time in my photography, but I had to learn all of the fundamentals. in order to actually be able to take a photo that looks good. If you've ever picked up a professional camera without any training, most people know that they watch people on YouTube or on the internet take pictures with a camera, and will it looks so easy. Everyone used to say it was a photographer. Oh, you've got such a great camera. Your camera takes such great photos. I'm like, yeah, it's the camera. But so you take photos with a camera and you have no training, and it literally looks like your 90-year-old grandma just picked up a camera for the first time and is a tourist. It's you have to learn the fundamentals of photography to be able to use a camera properly and take good pictures. And this also exists within coaching and mentorship. And because it's not like a photo where there's this measurable obvious thing that you can look at and objectively say, oh, that was good or that was bad. You have a person that's going away and is processing this experience that they just had. And so you don't get the same kind of immediate feedback as you do when someone's with something like photography or dance, where it's objectively criticized. And so what we sometimes don't realize is that we all have a degree of people pleasing tendency. So even though someone might be saying to you, oh, this was really great, this was amazing, it doesn't actually mean that it had the impact that you thought that it did. And so it's really important that we understand the underlying rules that we might be breaking in these kinds of coaching and mentorship spaces. And I want to talk about some of the most fundamental things that I kind of have learned. Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about the specific steps. I honestly don't really have an outline for today. I'm just kind of going on what feels important. But so the first thing is that you have to understand trauma to a degree that people you're basically talking about an experience that still lives in the nervous system, something that can still be activated if you tap into it. So sometimes we really value emotional releases without actually understanding how much trauma can affect certain people and how much having someone tap into their trauma, if you, one, don't know how to deal with what comes up, and two, don't know how to provide the support afterwards, can affect someone. And I think that this is really important because there is such a fine line. And this is something that I really had to learn through thousands of hours of experience, is there is such a fine line between reframing and invalidating someone's experience. And it's such a fine line. And I think sometimes what happens when we don't have the underlying coaching competency to understand the degree of what it is that we're tapping into in people is that we tap into something that's very deep and very real, and then we think that we're helping by reframing, but what we're actually doing is invalidating someone's experience. And part of what's led me to the frustration that I feel the need to talk about this today is witnessing and feeling and experiencing people who have been in the coaching industry or mentored by the coaching industry, and they feel um it's almost like they feel a lack of trust with self because they've been taught to invalidate their experience. They've been gaslit. Honestly, I really don't like to use those kinds of words, but it really is this being trained not to trust your experience. It's, I had this experience. It's like, no, no, no. If this happened, if you were upset, if whatever, 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 that wasn't the experience that you had, you're wrong. And what I want to say, both as a mentee and potential other people in the industry that are watching, is that it is very, very, very important that we're not invalidating other people's experiences in this way. One, for you as a human being, your authority, your knowing, your guidance is above everything else. And while your emotional guidance system may have some gremlins in it, while there may be things that come up sometimes where you overreact or you're triggered, and there are little bits where it's like, okay, can I go in and refine this? And can I self-reflect? And can I work out those kinks? This should be the thing that we come back to again and again and again and again. Our knowing, our authority, our guidance, our intuition above everything else. We have to be cultivating a deep sense of trust with ourselves through all mentorship experiences. And if we are someone that's in a mentorship role, it's incredibly important that we are guiding people back to their own authority, their own realization. And so this was one of the fundamental things that I learned in coaching. This is like the foundation of coaching, not the coaching that might have been exposed to in the online space, but like actual structured, certified, ICF approved executive style coaching. Is that it's not about you, it's not about giving advice, it's not about giving people answers, it's not about offering them your solutions, it's not about teaching them your strategies. It is about asking very specific kinds of questions in a very specific way that leads people back to the answers within them. To use more technical terms, it's called the resource. What we're guiding people back to is what's called an unconscious resource. So, where this is what is taught in coaching trainings at a more surface level, with all the hypnotherapy training that I've done, I've learned to do this at a much deeper level. So I really want to emphasize that while we kind of get lost and can get lost in all these different things, that it's important to understand this fundamental thing, which is guiding the answers back to people, back to the answers within themselves. This is also something that I deeply, deeply, deeply understand, having studied hypnotherapy to the level that I have, is that actually we can create resistance to the true answer for someone when we blurt it out. So let's say, because of basically the effects of reverse psychology. So let's say someone's in front of you and they are sharing something about a situation that they just had with their partner, and you might immediately be able to see that they are projecting their experience from a past relationship onto this partner. And because you see this and you're like, oh my goodness, I can see what's going on here, I really want to help you, you might just tell them at face value, this is what's going on. But what's most likely to happen in that situation is that that person's mind, particularly their subconscious, will reject what you've just said, which kind of pushes it further away from acceptance. And that thing that you just had pushed further away from acceptance might be the very thing, the realization that they need to come to on their own to move through this situation in a really healthy way. So, one of the things that I learned to do in conversational hypnosis is we do this thing called testing at the end, which is basically like you feed the negative back to someone and they like fight back against the thing that they were afraid of in the beginning. But you're using reverse psychology in this kind of positive way where they're now like defending the healthy belief that they wanted to take on board. But when we don't lead someone through this entire process of realization, we can just end up causing more problems, and we can actually elicit a response where someone rejects the very thing that they need to understand because it came from you and not from them. So this is why it's incredibly important to understand the fundamentals of questioning, of conversation, of leading people to their own realizations. And again, this is why I say understanding the underlying rules before you break them, because there are times that you break those rules, especially when we get into these more like intuitive and spiritual spaces, which I also love. I really have been growing into this version where I'm honoring this deep intuition that I have. It's something that I recognized a while ago, that often the most valuable pieces, when clients reflected back the most valuable things, they were parts of sessions and of experiences that were unlocked by my intuition, and kind of more of like my gifts is what people would call it. But the thing that I really, really want to emphasize for anyone that's watching is that I have this incredible foundation underneath where I understand where all the rules are, where all the lines are. When I break a rule, when I'm offering something where like maybe in the like textbook training it would be a faux pas to offer something, I understand where that rule is. I understand where that barrier is, and I understand the line that I'm stepping over, and I'm watching for all of the different kinds of responses that can come up in that person to inform what's being offered, to inform how I'm guiding that session and that conversation. And so while someone watching might not see that and might think, oh, Michael uses his intuition, I want to do that, I just want to share things that I feel for people, this might not actually be beneficial for people. And so I think I think it's something a conversation that this industry really has to have is like, what are the boundaries? What are the ethics? What are the guidelines? Because on the other side of this conversation, and I think one of the reasons that I've been hesitant to have this for a while is because there is also this very loud narrative of people have to take self-responsibility. People have to be their own accountability. And this is a million percent true. I could not agree with this anymore. However, there's this fine line between inviting people into self-responsibility and like gaslighting someone after you've invalidated their experience. And I think it's something that we really deeply have to navigate. We really have to work on this craft. I myself I had countless supervised and feedback driven hours of practice before I ever even did the methodology that I learned in like with people. And then I had thousands, and I mean thousands of hours of doing the therapeutic interventions that I learned exactly the way that I learned them to the textbook before I ever started to venture out into bringing intuition into blurring any kinds of lines. And so the foundation underneath that is immense. I'm sharing this because I realize that someone watching might not see that. They might not understand that. And I really want to come at this from the perspective of education. The intention is not to shame anyone, it's to bring more education, bring more understanding. I want to see everyone grow into a better coach, a better healer, whatever it is. But I also want to see the industry doing more good because that's what it's meant to do. And right now, there are some things that are slipping through the cracks, and it's leading to some people being very hurt. It's leading to some things being very confusing. It's leading to some things being very like not so great. And I also want to separate these behaviors from people because I think that we all have our great moments and we all have our worst moments. And it's not about shaming a person. It's about bringing awareness to this behavior, bringing awareness and focus to the importance of this kind of education. And I would really, encourage people if you don't even if when I talk about core coaching competencies, you don't have a super solid idea of what those might be and what, like just like consent and like a process that you might lead someone through if you were to do something by the book, then that was something that I would really encourage you to explore because there is a lot more going on. And this is something that people used to say about Marissa all the time. I remember, all of us little young hypnotherapy fledglings were always like, oh, I'm going to be the next Marissa Pierre, I'm going to change the world. And the trainers used to say to us, listen, like you need to check yourself. Marissa makes it look so easy. She makes it look so easy because you don't see all of the experience that's going into that. And I think that that same dynamic is often present with our industry, particularly with people who are the greats because they make it look so easy. And I've fallen into this trap too. I've watched people, I'm like, oh my God, they just show up and riff. And like, there's this, I can do that. But I've realized how much skill those people that make things look effortless have massive, massive, massive skill behind it. And even when people are talking about channeling or they're talking about transmissions, and the implication is that they're just letting it come through them, the people who are truly doing that in a way that is transformational and positively impacting the people with positive measurable results that are in their containers, I guarantee you have either some kind of formal training or they've learned a ton from people um, that have this formal training. And so the things that they're doing might not even be visible to you. There might actually be so much that's going on in skill that it seems completely invisible, and that we sometimes might take that and not realize that we are not holding ourselves to the same level of um like skill. And this is a constant process of refinement for everyone. And I totally also get, because I'm also in this experience where it can be like, okay, now I have to focus so much on my business and all these things, and all of my time and attention goes there. But we also have to be cultivating our actual skill of working with people. And yeah, I can't emphasize enough how much having trainings about still attending, like master classes and seminars and just programs and things that are focused around actually building competencies, as well as things that are focused on marketing and business and stuff, has been fundamental. And people, my clients call what I do the Michael magic, because they're just like, you can just feel it, and people don't understand what's happening. But the truth is, I am using I don't use the RTT framework anymore, but I am using so much that I learned from Marissa Peer and that training. I'm learning so much of what I learned from using regressive hypnotherapy with the hundreds, if not thousands of clients. I'm learning so much of the principles that I learned from conversational hypnotherapy. I'm learning so much of what I learned from my coaching training. I'm learning so much of what I've learned from being mentors, and I'm using my intuition. My intuition is like the cherry on top that pulls it all together. It's not intuition instead of all of these other things. And I think that it's really important that we understand that, because I think it just can be easy to get lost in the swept up and they're like, I have a gift and I'm just going to share, and not realizing that sometimes we might be triggering people, that we might be hurting people, that we might be bringing things up that we don't know, how to deal with. And we might also be bringing things up and then like invalidating people's experiences, and not realizing the role in that, when we don't know how to read what's going on, or we don't understand the nuance between, like something like when we're reframing or when we're invalidating, or we don't know the nuance between, um, when someone's talking a conscious story, or when they're kind of being triggered and they're in this like emotional unconscious moment. If we don't know the difference between those things, and we don't know like where to push and how much to push, and how to deal with what comes up, because this is a big thing too. It's like you can go deep and you can rip open all the wounds if you know how to sew it all back up, right? If you're a freaking surgeon, then you can go in there, but if you don't, then you can't go there, because that's not right for that person. It's not right to dig up someone's deep wounds if you don't have a skill that 1000% of the time you can deal with. There's something people can have called an ab reaction. If you don't know how to deal with an ab reaction, don't go into people's trauma. you know I think these are just things that we need to understand on a deeper level. I would love to see like the floor of integrity raised industry wide. And I want to also say, I'm having this conversation with you because I'm also having this conversation with myself a lot, looking at where can I be more integrous, looking at where have I gotten lost, looking at where have I done things in the past that I think I need a course correction and a redirect. This isn't me blaming or shaming everyone. This is me actually sharing with you a conversation that I'm having with myself, and a conversation that I think is going to be really valuable industry wide. So I'm going to just jump in and look at the comments here, because there are a lot. Yes, absolutely. Hi, Michael. Hi. Like any art, you must know the rules and when to break them. Yes, we have to have a deep understanding of ourselves. Love this. Yes, I didn't even touch on that. Thank you so much for bringing that. That's the other thing, is that we are always projecting in mentorship as well. So as human beings, we're not really living reality. We're living our projection of reality. So we also have to get good at understanding like how our own biases come into these kinds of spaces, and we have to you have to kind of cultivate a relationship with that as well. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, more education and expansion. Hamaya says effortless mastery might look immature while it's advanced. Yeah, it's like so easy when it's so good. Stay in your wheelhouse, do what you do Beautifully. These are human souls. Yeah, and I think too, it's like, if you want to experiment or grow your skill set, I think that that's amazing, but I think be transparent about that, rather than just deciding maybe that you're going to charge for something that you've never done. Like maybe, do some free sessions, or like do them with friends, or say I want to try this thing, or even just open it up to your audience and be really transparent. When I was um learning conversational hypnosis, like getting someone into this unconscious kind of state without doing an induction, which is what I had relied on for so long, was actually really, really difficult. And I practiced so much. I practiced on so many friends. I offered sessions to so many people. And honestly, it's one of the ways that I've built up my business is that every time I've learned something new, I've just practiced it. And I've never really gotten to the point where it's like, okay, now I have to charge for this, because as I've practiced, I've gotten so much better at that, and I've gotten so confident that it's just been like automatic. Like people have just been like, "Well, now I give you money for this." You know what I mean? That was with RTT. I was doing free sessions for friends, and then and then uh and then it just got to this point where people were like, give me money with tears, because they were like, I have to pay you for this. It was so valuable for me. And I was like, oh, I guess it's time to charge. And I think, sometimes we hear this messaging, especially from the business coaches, of like, don't give away your services for free and you have to value everything. But like those, probably within like all the different things that I've done and done free sessions, like the couple of hundred free sessions that I've done for experience are invaluable to me. They are the foundation of the Michael Magic and the skill that looks effortless, and like why I can hold containers and spaces in the way that I do now, because of all of that cultivation of mastery. So um, Jillian says ICF has evolved so much in the last several years. The old ICF style was toxic positivity reframing. You arrived at the right moment. They're evolving faster with the evolution of neuroscience and the recent research in the online trainings. And like, yeah, I love this that you even brought up toxic positivity, because like this is even something that, like, there's nuance to all of it. This is the thing, human beings are nuanced. We're messy. There's like all of these dynamics within us. So you can't just say, um this is blanket talk what toxic positivity is, right? It's like, what's toxic positivity for this person might actually be like really healthy reframing for that person. So it's like, how do we navigate that nuance? How do we resolve people's different experiences? If all of our experiences are valid, how do we resolve that? I think that's a better question maybe to ask ourselves in different moments, and be okay with the not being, an immediately defined answer. And also there's stages of the journey, right? Like in some ways, I feel like some of the things that I learned in the beginning, I would say are maybe a little bit toxic positivity, or like a little bit just like lying yourself into a better situation or a better feeling thought. But doing that from the place that I was, allowed me to have the emotional stability and the nervous system regulation to actually go deep. It was like I had to build this platform that was stable through a little bit of toxic positivity. I'm just using air quotes on that, to be able to drill down and deal with some of the really deep emotional stuff, and not like be triggered by it, and not have it be this avalanche that took me out. So it's like, so how do we even resolve that, where it's like, okay, maybe that was a little bit of bypassing, but like maybe I had to bypass to climb the ladder a little bit so I could get to this point that was solid in order to do the deep work. Like, where's that in the conversation? We've got to have space for all of this. So I hope that you're left today with some contemplations. And even the greats make mistakes. Absolutely, absolutely. And that's me too. Some of my some of my I wish I think I'm supposed to be in a session like right now. Um, yes, I am. So I'm actually just gonna text them right now. Sorry, I didn't realize it was so far over. I'm like 10 minutes late. Um, we what am I saying? Someone that's here, remind me what I'm saying when it's blatant gas. Oh, great! The greats make mistakes. I wish I could had more time to tell you some of the stories, but some of the biggest mistakes that I made early, like they're so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing, so bad, like such bad situations. early in my career, but they taught me so much. They taught me, never to do that thing again, or like they taught me the lesson, or like clients that were competitive, or I let them sort of be in charge. I will never do that again because of that one bad experience. So, and I've even seen the multiple of the expert, like I've trained with some world class people who are just so incredible, and I've seen all of them do these sessions that are like cutting through butter, that are effortless, where they just change lives like that. And I've also seen those same people have a session where they struggle, or maybe they don't like pick on the right thread. So there is a space for that as well. There's so much to all of this. um yeah, when it's Jillian says when it's blatant gaslighting, for sure it's toxic positivity. But anyways, I do have a client and a session right now. So thank you so much for joining me for this today. Would love if you let me know if you were here. Let me know if you're catching the replay. And please share this if you think that it would be valuable for someone. I think this is a really good conversation for us to have. And again, my intention for this is to be a call in rather than a call out. And for us to just have a conversation about how like how great this industry can be, and how much we can all refine our skill and make it really amazing. So I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for joining me today, and bye for now.